Hi, we are live from the 73rd annual Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting in lovely Lindau, Germany. I'm Brian Malow, and I'm speaking with one of the 630 young scientists here this year. And it's a physics meeting, but Etienne Palos, you're not actually a physicist, are you?
I'm not actually a physicist, I'm not actually a chemist either, but I am considered a theoretical chemist.
So you're a theoretical chemist, so it's even theoretical that you are a chemist?
Yes, it means I don't actually do chemistry in a laboratory. I'm not qualified, and no one should really put me in a lab because it could be dangerous.
Okay, so now that we've discussed what you aren't, well, what are you? You're a theoretical chemist. What do you
Yeah,
focus on?
yeah. So what I focus on a lot is physical chemistry. I like to really understand intermolecular interactions, both from a classical perspective. So I use a lot of statistical mechanics, molecular modeling, but we want the accuracy of ab initio methods and everything based on quantum mechanics. So
Okay.
data driven modeling is a big theme here at the 73rd Lindau, and data driven modeling and machine learning plays a big role in connecting these two things in my work.
Okay, and you are, tell me where you're from and where you're working now.
Yeah, so I'm a PhD student at the University of California, San Diego. Um, I was born in San Diego. I grew up on both sides of the Mexican and U.S. border, however. So I'm a huge fan of Mexican food and Southern California culture.
Yeah, me too,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact. And so this is really the last full day of scientific programming of the meeting. We had the opening ceremony on Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 very full days of programming, and not just programming, but social activities and conversations in between every session. But forget me talking about it. Tell me what your impression of this meeting has been.
Yeah, no, this meeting has been absolutely wonderful. It is my first time in Germany, and absolutely, it's actually my first time in Europe. So I'm loving every part of it. Meeting people from every part of the world who are as passionate about their work as I try to say that I'm passionate about mine. And just realizing that some of our experiences as young researchers, or even old researchers, including the Nobel laureates, is that some of our experiences and challenges are universal. And for me, that's been really revitalizing.
Excellent. Could you tell me a couple highlights you've had this week?
Yes, definitely. So even though it's not related to what I currently work on, but when I was an undergraduate, they say you have a dollar and a dream, and for me that dollar was a printout copy of topological insulator papers that I just had on my desk all the time with scribbles, and so I got to have a chat and dinner with Duncan Haldane, and so for me that's been one of the highlights, just hanging out with some of the people that really inspired me to get into science and from an academic perspective.
Very nice. And let's talk about science a little. Did you always know you wanted to be a scientist? And did you always know you might be a theoretical chemist?
When I realized that I did want to be a scientist, then I did know I wanted to be a theorist. But I didn't
Why?
know.
How?
Well, I like to think, even if the thoughts are not really always well founded. But I do enjoy the journey of going from a thought to maybe some ideas on a piece of paper, maybe an equation, and then the notion of we can write certain things down, but we can't solve them. I think computation for me plays a huge role, and so I think that to be a theoretical scientist, whether you're any field of physics, I think that there's like a low entry barrier, because you don't need a very sophisticated lab. You need some creativity, some passion, and maybe a piece of paper or a computer.
Nice. And is there anything you wish the public better understood about science?
Yeah, sort of basically what I just said. I can imagine that it would puzzle some people. Like, what do you mean it's a low entry barrier to theoretical science? So many folks, maybe in my family or where I come from, are sort of afraid of mathematics and physics. And so when you tell them, I do theoretical chemical physics or theoretical chemistry, they kind of look at you funny. But it's just like a sport. So being a Mexican American, It's funny, but I'm not a huge fan of soccer. Wasn't very good at it, so somehow I stuck to math a little. And I think it's just something that if we really start normalizing and encouraging young people and the public to get educated on, then it's just something that you sort of grasp. And the beauty of it for me is that it changes how you see the entire world. So not just the discipline that you're interested in, but the entire your worldview changes.
Excellent. And you know how I can tell you're not a big soccer fan? Because you called it soccer.
Yeah.
Which I'm with you on
Yes,
that.
yes.
We're Americans,
Yes.
essentially. Um, so this is a pretty unusual meeting. Probably, I'm sure you've been to other science meetings, and this one is probably a little different. When you go home and your scientist friends or your friends and family ask you about this, what would you tell them? What is the Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting?
Wow. Well, to my scientist friends, I would say that it's the only meeting I've been to where I never felt imposter syndrome, which is interesting because before coming here, I thought I would have it, of course. You know, they say 600 of the brightest young minds and, all the living brightest minds of our time are here. So imposter syndrome was definitely there before I landed here. But during this meeting, it's just amazing. Like the vibe is super chill, and everyone is just really eager and happy to talk about their science and learn about everybody else's, especially from other fields, which is the most fun thing. And I think that helps with not having the imposter syndrome. You know, you don't have to worry about every technical detail when talking about your science. You talk about what got you here and kind of what gets you up in the morning and keeps you going.
Excellent. I mean, yeah, exactly. You would think this at this meeting is where you would have the imposter syndrome the most.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And what does get you up in the morning to go do? So not every person in the world is excited to get up for work, but I find that scientists often are. So you said that. What gets you up in the morning to go to work?
The possibility that we live in an era where these disciplines, and I think we're seeing this at this Nobel laureate meeting, that several disciplines are coming together. So biology and physics used to be completely different. You wouldn't really see biologists and physicists talk, especially theoretical physicists talk at the same conference. And then chemists are sort of sandwiched in the middle. So right now we're really at a crossroads where physics is really an interdisciplinary science. And so when I said that I'm not a chemist and I'm not a physicist either, my training has been quite interdisciplinary. And in high school, I couldn't really pick between biochemistry, pure physics, or chemistry. And so I'm interested in a little bit of everything. But you gotta really develop your foundational skills in one area, and that's the one that I'm working on now.
And you can reinvent yourself and evolve quite a lot. And Stephen Chu, the physics Nobel laureate, is a really good example of that, if you
Yes.
don't already know, because the work that won him the Nobel Prize is pretty far removed from things he's been working on
Yeah.
over these more recent decades. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
incredible.
actually, that's one of the things I'm taking away from this meeting is I'm not afraid to switch fields if I think that something interests me. Life is short enough as it is, and after this meeting, I'm just convinced to really let my scientific interests guide me more than any sort of like unwritten rules, but these vaguely painted paths that we think we have as a young scientist with a family. You think of job security. If I've invested time on this, should I stay here? But after this meeting, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where we end up.
Well, Etienne, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Yeah.
We'll see each other.